I was part of a whole generation of people who were seduced by the sounds of rock and roll.
Jimmy Page never listened to music the way ordinary players did. While others copied licks, Page listened for shadows, spaces between notes, the crackle of tape, the breath before a chord. He treated albums like gateways, studying how sound could move through a room, bend the air, and change the temperature of a moment. Every riff he created carried fingerprints of things he'd absorbed long before Zeppelin ever existed, from American bluesmen recorded in dusty hotel rooms, to British folk magicians whispering strange chords, to the electric shock of early rock and the spiritual burn of reggae. Page took it all in like a long apprenticeship.
What are the things that inspire you when nothing seems to be working?
It's quite easy, really. It's the records that really turned me on in the early stages of things.
These 10 albums weren't favorites in a simple sense. They were foundations. They taught him danger, subtlety, rhythm, and rebellion. Here are the 10 albums Jimmy Page held closest, the ones that shaped the man behind the storm. 10. Lonnie Donegan, Showcase.
Really an iconic figure from over here called Lonnie Donegan.
He's a loud-speaking man.
Before Jimmy Page was a guitar hero, he was an 8-year-old kid who found a campfire guitar lying around his new house. It had all 6 strings, which he later said was pretty useful. But the guitar sat silent until Lonnie Donegan exploded across British television in the mid-1950s. Donegan's 1956 album featuring Rock Island Line became the match that lit Page's fuse. Every Saturday, Page watched Donegan tear through American blues and country, with nothing but an acoustic guitar, a washboard, and absolute conviction. Rock Island Line hit number 8 in the United Kingdom and cracked the American top 10, unprecedented for a British artist playing folk blues. Years later, Page told that nearly every British guitarist from the 60s would credit Donegan as the influence.
I'm the same one. I came into the same way with this portal by Lonnie Donegan and seeing the acoustic guitar and seeing there was a possibility, that it was possible to do this.
Skiffle taught Page his first lesson, that acoustic guitars could be weapons, that simplicity and fire mattered more than perfection. Without Donegan's television performances and this album, the fingers that would create Stairway to Heaven might never have picked up a guitar at all. 9. Donovan, Sunshine Superman.
Donovan, I did a few things. Sunshine Superman is one that everyone knows. I worked quite a bit on the Donovan albums with him too.
Jimmy Page and Donovan weren't just contemporaries, they worked together. Page played on several Donovan sessions, absorbing the singer's blend of folk magic, jazz colors, and psychedelic curiosity. Sunshine Superman, released in 1966, was one of the most innovative British albums of its time, and Page admired how Donovan painted with unusual chords and textures. He later recalled those sessions as a doorway into new tunings, new voicings, new moods. Songs like Season of the Witch, The Trip, and the title track showed Page how acoustic instruments could feel mystical without drifting into softness. Page loved Donovan's bravery using sitar, harpsichord, and modal runs when most of London was still playing straightforward beat music. You can feel those influences in White Summer, Black Mountain Side, and even the pastoral calm of Zeppelin III. Sunshine Superman taught Page that folk could be radical, psychedelic, and sly all at once. And he carried that lesson everywhere. 8. The Who, My Generation.
What are some other ones that you're really proud of?
The Who's Can't Explain.
Yeah, that's...
The Who's 1965 debut was pure combustion. Pete Townshend smashed guitars, Keith Moon played drums like he was attacking them, and Roger Daltrey stuttered through the title track like a battle cry. Page, already working as a session guitarist in London studios, had actually played rhythm guitar on early Who recordings before the album dropped. On the single version of I Can't Explain, Page laid down the foundational rhythm while Townshend handled the lead parts, a collaboration that taught him how power and precision could coexist.
Involved in something like that, I was brought in, and you can hear what I do right in the background, because Pete is playing the lead and everything, but to actually be on that session, and it was in a small recording studio, and everything. It's like a performance in these days, like performance art. And the just being there in the energy of it, and I'm just doing the riff underneath on those circumstances. But yeah, I was on some really, really dramatic.
The album peaked at number 5 in the UK, but its impact went beyond charts. Townshend's feedback and power chords, Moon's chaotic fills that somehow held the center, the sheer aggression of it all showed Page that rock could be violent and beautiful simultaneously. 7. Bob Marley, Catch a Fire.
Every time I hear the crack of a whip, my blood runs cold. I remember on the station.
Jimmy Page always had wide musical tastes, and reggae reached him early. When Bob Marley and the Wailers released Catch a Fire in 1973, Page immediately recognized its brilliance, calling it a masterclass in groove and spiritual weight. What impressed him most was the discipline of the rhythm section, Aston Barrett's bass, Carlton Barrett's pulse, and the way every instrument left space. Tracks like Concrete Jungle, Stir It Up, and Kinky Reggae showed him how tension could come from restraint, not volume. He also loved the sharp guitar accents and deep rhythmic pockets, a precision he aimed for in No Quarter and The Rain Song. Reggae, he said, made every instrument count, a mindset that shaped presence and houses of the holy. Catch a Fire expanded Page's sense of groove, space, and emotional clarity, proving that power can live in the silence between beats. 6. Jeff Beck, Truth. Jeff Beck wasn't just Jimmy Page's peer, he was his closest musical rival. They'd swapped gigs, guitars, and even time in the Yardbirds. When Beck released Truth in 1968, Page immediately saw it as a breakthrough, later saying Beck had set the bar frighteningly high. With Rod Stewart's raw vocals, Ron Wood's bass, and Beck's explosive phrasing, Truth redefined British blues rock. Page especially valued Beck's Bolero, a track he'd helped shape earlier, for its cinematic sweep and ambition. He studied Beck's tone on Morning Dew, Shapes of Things, and You Shook Me, which Zeppelin later reimagined. What struck him was Beck's mix of precision and wildness, guitar lines that felt crafted yet barely contained. Truth pushed Page toward the scale and intensity of Led Zeppelin I, proving heavy music could still be elegant and dynamic. Beck didn't just influence him, he challenged him to level up. 5. Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix shared mutual respect that ran deeper than public image. Page often said he admired Hendrix's electric poetry, the way he sculpted sound rather than simply playing notes. When Are You Experienced arrived in 1967, Page knew instantly it was revolutionary. Songs like Purple Haze, Manic Depression, and Third Stone from the Sun proved the guitar could create its own universe. Hendrix didn't follow rules, he vaporized them. Page particularly loved the rhythmic imagination behind Fire and Foxy Lady, calling Hendrix's phrasing fearless. Their paths crossed in London clubs, backstage corridors, late-night sessions always with mutual admiration, never rivalry. You can hear Hendrix's influence in the molten edge of Heartbreaker, the studio experimentation in Whole Lotta Love, and the psychedelic shimmer across Led Zeppelin II. Are You Experienced didn't teach Page how to play, it showed him how far the instrument could go when pushed without fear. 4. Muddy Waters, the best of Muddy Waters. Before there was British blues, there was Chicago blues, and Muddy Waters owned it. This 1958 Chess Records compilation gathered Waters at his most powerful, I'm Your Hoochie Coochie Man, Mannish Boy, Got My Mojo Working. For a teenage Page, obsessing over imported American blues records in London, this was scripture. Waters' electric guitar hit like a freight train, and his voice carried the weight of the Delta even as it conquered the city. What separated Waters from other bluesmen was his command. He didn't beg, he declared. Page absorbed that authority, that sense that the blues could be heavy and hypnotic without ever rushing. Listen to Since I've Been Loving You from Led Zeppelin III, and you hear Waters' DNA, the slow burn, the bent strings crying. 3. Howlin Wolf, Moanin' in the Moonlight. If Robert Johnson gave Page the myth, Howlin Wolf gave him the muscle. Moanin' in the Moonlight, released in 1959, was the sound of blues turning physical, thick, heavy, and unapologetically raw. Page often spoke about the hypnotic pull of Wolf's rhythm patterns, calling them a trance more than a song. Tracks like Smokestack Lightning and Evil were built on riffs that circled like a predator. Wolf didn't rush, he stalked. You can hear Wolf's influence in You Shook Me, How Many More Times, and the grinding pulse of the Lemon Song. Page especially admired Hubert Sumlin's guitar work, sharp, stabbing lines that cut right through the mix. Moanin' in the Moonlight showed Page that repetition was power, a slow build that tightened the air until the whole room vibrated. Wolf taught him that groove could be ominous, that space could feel like pressure, and that a great band could sound like a creature with its own heartbeat. 2. Robert Johnson, king of the Delta blues singers. Long before Zeppelin, Page was a teenager hearing ghosts come through the speaker. Robert Johnson's King of the Delta Blues Singers changed the weather inside his mind. Released in 1961, it gathered Johnson's recordings from 1936 and 37, rough, brittle, full of shadows. Page later said, "Those songs felt like the earth opening up." Tracks like Crossroad Blues and Hellhound on My Trail weren't just blues, they were myth, dread, and poetry wrapped in one voice and one guitar. Page studied Johnson's shifting bass patterns, sliding chords, and sudden falsetto bursts like sacred texts. You can hear Johnson's fingerprints all over Traveling Riverside Blues, When the Levee Breaks, and the acoustic sections of Led Zeppelin 3. This wasn't just influence. This was origin. Johnson taught Page that music could be haunted and still beautiful. King of the Delta Blues Singers is the root beneath Page's entire tree. 1. Link Wray, Rumble. Jimmy Page called Link Wray the man who started the idea of the power chord. Released in 1958, Rumble was a single so raw that several American radio stations banned it. No lyrics, just menace. Page loved how Wray used distortion as a weapon, stabbing speaker cones with a pencil to force grit. That low-tuned guitar taught Page that attitude mattered as much as technique, that a single chord, pushed hard enough, could feel dangerous. Listen to How Many More Times, or the Wanton Song, and you hear that heavy, swaggering attack. Rumble taught Page that rock didn't need permission, it only needed voltage.